Hey everybody, in this episode, Daniel Burstein joins us. He is a publisher who has posted over 1,000 queries on HARO. He's had to have received tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pitches by now. He's going to break down what he looks for in a great pitch. We're going to go into exactly how you can improve your pitching game. I hope you enjoy the tips that are in this episode, straight from the publisher. Hey everybody, welcome back to Jolly SEOs TLDR. Today we are joined by Daniel Burstein. Daniel, thank you so much. You are the senior director, of content for MarketingSherpa and MeclabsAI. And what I'm so excited about is I've got a stat that I want to share with you about you for the audience, but I think you're the most prolific HARO query poster of all time. How do you feel about that intro?
That's an honor. That's an honor because what that means is I've been out there looking for stories to help our audience. That's the only reason I post those queries. So I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that.
It's awesome. I mean, we're really excited to meet with you today because it's easy for me to present all these tips on pitching and the side of the person doing outreach for clients, but you're the publisher, so to speak. You're on the other side. You're trying to collect all this expert knowledge for your audience. And so, as I kind of teased, I looked at my inbox. I think you've posted over 1,000 queries to the HARO newsletter. I don't know. I just stopped clicking through my inbox after that point. Any idea what year you started posting queries? Like how many you've posted? And this will be probably impossible to calculate how many pitches you've either received or looked at.
Well, that's great. I did not know it had been 1,000. I think if you do anything long enough, it just adds up. I guess I'm the Cal Ripken of
You are.
posting the hero. Yeah, so I remember, I think it was like probably 2009 or 2010. I was attending this virtual event for like small businesses back then. And there was this guy named Peter Shankman who was reporting. I actually remember looking at the agenda, just seeing, it's a virtual event. I'm at work, I'm in the office. What do I want to pop in and pop out? And I just remember seeing the name of his company, and it was Help a Reporter Out. Right. And I just say that because anyone, we publish about marketing. Anyone who's listening about marketing, you want a unique value proposition. There was a value proposition in the name of the darn company. And I was like, I don't even know what this is, but help a reporter out. I'm watching. And so then I watched Peter, and it wasn't about pitching his company. I think it was about like small business lessons, and I think he even talked about like getting an Amex card and using the points or whatever because they didn't have
Yes.
funding or that type of stuff. But just hearing about what the service did is it was again a service that had an instant value proposition because if you rewind back to then, it was just all getting pitched generically, right? So you get press releases, there are wire services, they became email, and there's frankly a fine line between that and getting a bunch of junk mail. But then when this guy Peter Shankman came along, and I think it started as a Facebook group and became Help a Reporter Out, and it's gone many places since then. And he said, "Well, wait a minute. Instead of having it in this direction where we're just going to pitch and throw the just stuff against the wall and hope we somehow get something a reporter wants, why don't we see what the reporters want?" Let the reporters put it out there, say, here's what I'm looking for, and then we can have more relevant pitches. So it was back then that I distinctly remember that. And obviously it's come a long way since then. But again, what just an instant value proposition when I saw that name Help Reporter Out in that agenda.
No, it's awesome. Look, in the spirit of tonight's podcast, tonight for me, morning for you, I put out a quick short on what do you actually want, right? Like first, you should actually answer the question. But before that, even make sure you even want to hear from us because some people are very explicit about who they want to hear from. You said this thing in our communication, which I thought was great, and I was gonna ask you if you could just say it again. You said, "Do you remember the quote?" I'm trying to ask you to repeat.
No, can you refresh my memory? I
You
say a lot of
you
stuff.
you said journalist query services are not link building services.
Oh, yeah. So this is great. And I think this is what started this conversation. So, okay, everyone, right, and whatever your job is now, you're right. If you're doing SEO, everyone's got frustrations in their job, right?
Yeah.
A lot of SEOs probably, I'm sure you're frustrated with Google. They're a pain in the butt. There's different things we're frustrated with. And one of the things I am frustrated with is look, this is my job and I do it to make money, but it's my passion, right? Like whatever your job is, I hope it's your art. This is my art. I am trying to build helpful things in the world. And so, when I'm putting things out on those journalist query services like HARO and, SOS and different ones, I'm trying to find value to give it to the audience. And that's what I'm trying to do. So one thing I do is a marketing Sherpa we teach about customer first marketing. One of my customers is my audience. I'm focused there, but another of my customer is my sources because I won't have what I need for the sources if what I need for the audience if I don't have the sources. And so once a day, I'll do an exact match search on Help a Reporter Out. It's a specific brand. It wasn't for a while when it went away, so it was nice. But it's the best term I found. Journalist query services don't turn up enough stuff. And because I want to see what are people saying about it. I want to understand the people on the other side. And so when I do that, like it's often written about as like along with like link buying and stuff like that and skyscraper techniques and all this stuff. And so like the people using it, has become a lot of SEOs, just see it as link placement, right? Which is again evolved from we talked about those early days where it was a lot more of a PR function. It still is, but it's become a bit of an SEO function. And so that's something that frustrates me a lot when I see it written about like that. It is not a link, building or link placement service. It is a service that reporters can use to serve their audience. And this is where, we're probably a little unique to publication because we teach about marketing. So I also bring like, marketing ideas into it. When I teach about companies that are overly focused on revenue instead of customer first marketing, right? Obviously, you want to get revenue, you want to get leads, whatever it is. That is what's called a lagging indicator in business, right? A lagging indicator. It's the result of something. The leading indicator for a company is serving a customer better than anyone else. That's where you focus, and then you get revenue and leads, right? And I would say it's the same thing for SEOs. It's you focus on serving reporters if you want to get leads for publication. The lagging indicator is you getting a link. It's not, oh, I give you thing and get link. And so that's if I could turn the tables on you, Greg. That's I think what led us to this conversation. I was listening to a podcast, I want to give credit, I think it was called the SEO Show. And you said two things that I think I was screaming. I was so excited because again, we all have frustrations in our day to day. That's one of my frustrations. The two things you said that really blew me away. I don't know if you want to share that story. One is the spamming that happens where it's like, we'll just throw a bunch of, for lack of a better word, I hope I can say it, crap out there and hopefully we get a hit. You had a great story there, but also seeing the bigger picture with SEO. That is not, I'm going to get an instant link placement and yay. It's what is the bigger picture? I have a brand as well and I don't want to ruin it. So I don't know if you want to share some of that because I thought that was super helpful to the audience. I don't want to undercut your SEO show. Everyone should listen to that episode. Maybe you could just briefly share about that.
Yeah, sure. No, and thanks. And certainly we've evolved, right? So I mentioned there's an anecdote in there of someone I saw a clip of where they talked about and they were laughing about how they had a 1 out of 200 conversion rate. They had a VA just do generative pitches all day long to every opportunity, and they were laughing. I'm probably blacklisted at every publication by now. And what I was saying on the SEO show with Michael was whether you're an in-house SEO or a founder or whatever it is you're doing, these are real brands. Unless you don't intend for the company that you're representing to be a real brand one day. I mean, we've invested almost a decade now into the Jolly brand. So for me to go out on the internet and just start goofing off like that, whoa, what counterproductive work that would be. And certainly for our clients, we can't afford that. And actually, I was saying before we started recording, to continue this thread, you intimidated me at first. You wouldn't know this, but one of our client accounts reached out to you, and I don't remember exactly what you said. And if I dug it up, maybe it was like a super polite, like guiding moment. But on the other end was like a shocking, like, oh shit, we transgressed. And so we've had to learn too. And I mentioned in the spirit of this episode, put out a little short really for me what encapsulates all this is just remember on the other end is a human getting that pitch. And if you could just remember that this isn't some digital transactional experience, these are humans that you are having a relationship with, whether you're aware of it or not, and you could have a positive one or a negative one. I think that's what a lot of people are missing when they come at this from a link building angle.
And that's why I was excited to do this episode, just to kind of share some of the behind the scenes because it's a human. But again, I am damn proud of the work I do. Like, as I have a byline, my name is on everything I do. You talk about your brand being on there, not just
Yeah,
the Marketing Sherpa brand, my name is on there. So
it's
I
the
want it to be
Daniel brand.
quality.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, like, yeah, I do try to be somewhat polite and helpful. When I see on the other side that someone is actually trying, I do get pitches sometimes directly from an entrepreneur or a young PR. Hey, this is my first pitch. Am I doing this right? And blah, blah, blah. I want to be extra helpful, with them. I do get others that are obviously just AI spam or crap or junk or trying to get a link. And it's like, oh, come on. Right. And so that's where, you got to keep in mind, like you said, I love that there's a person on the other side and they're trying to do quality work. And when you're just spamming things out, like I think the example you gave is like, well, we send 200 out a day, and if we get one hit, then it's like a 0.5% conversion rate, but it works. You don't see the other 199 when we get that emails from that, oh gosh, these folks again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so what I like to think of, because marketers do this too, if your approach is, it's been called cold outreach, it's just spam, right? If that's your approach, it's like if you ever had a friend who broke up with like a long-term girlfriend and you go over his apartment and he's just wearing like jogging pants, you know what I mean? And it's like 2 o'clock, he's just waking up and all that stuff. And it's like, that person has given up on life. For the short time, hopefully they come back. And some of the people that are doing that spamming, they've just given up on their profession. You are better than that, right? You are more creative than that. You've got better ways to build SEO, to market, whatever it is. You can do better than that. Don't just give up on your career and just spam it out there. Maybe something will hit, right?
Hey, I'm so glad you're enjoying the video so far. If you want our help to keep your traffic trending up, please click that first link in the description down there. That lets you message me directly and I'll get right back to you. Looking forward to helping you out, and please enjoy the rest of this video.
Oh man, this is inspirational, but also we want to give people some actionable stuff here. So how
Sure.
can we be better? For starters, I wanted to ask you like subject line clarity we talked about in our email exchanges, but also any idea, it's kind of a two-part question on like the perfect length of a pitch. So first of all, like subject line, I think if I remember you said specifically something that you prefer, so maybe it doesn't apply to everything, but what's a good subject line that makes you want to read it?
Yeah. So subject lines, I think people probably logically know this, but they forget. I don't know what you're talking about, right? I get hundreds of emails about all different things. It's my specific queries, just general pitches, other things we're doing. And I don't know what you're talking about. So sometimes, people will either try to have these super conversion oriented, like, oh, this will be like such a sexy subject line that will grab you. Or, sometimes it just almost seems like they're starting in the middle of a conversation. And we might have even emailed before or stuff, but I get so many pitches, I don't know what you're talking about. So, but for two reasons, I have specific queries out there, multiple ones, and I'm just getting those generic pitches. So the thing that's super helpful to me, and this is, MarketingSherpa, our parent organization, is MeclabsAI. We have this whole methodology, patented methodology about effective marketing, and a key thing we talk about is clarity, right? Our founder, Phil McLaughlin, has this great quote: "Clarity trumps persuasion." So instead of trying to be so persuasive with the subject line, right? Again, it's just the subject line part, just opening it. Just be clear. If you are responding to a specific query on SOS, source of sources, or quoted, or whatever it is, put that in there. It's this query from here. And then I know, because when you're responding
Mm,
to a specific query, also I'll treat it differently than a generic pitch. And sometimes I can't tell the difference, right? If someone just pitched me generically, well, whatever. But if I know you're actually trying to respond to this, then I can separate it. As for length, I might be unique in this. I like length. And here's the reason why, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the gold, that story, right? And a lot of times the pitch, you have to be, again, so persuasive in the pitch. I'm looking for that story, that golden nugget that is going to ultimately be helpful to the audience. So the more you give me, the more I might find it. And that's why one thing I like to say in my queries, it's a classic writer's maxim: show, don't tell, right? Because I'll get all these pitches. Oh, we did this great thing, right? Well, I don't know. Like, let's see what you actually did. Now, to that end, what I often do is I'll scan the email, right? It's not like I'm reading the whole thing. I'm just kind of scanning to see, ooh, is there something good there? So the name of this podcast is TLDR, right, Greg?
yeah, that's right.
Which is a great name. What was it? Too long, didn't read, or something,
That's
right?
right.
That's what it
That's
stands for.
right. I
Yeah.
can't take credit. Former marketing manager for us, Priyam Chawla, came up with it. Awesome.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. I mean, where I've seen it is Reddit, and it's just a great way. Sum it up at the top. Even put TLDR. I actually, in my response to pitches, I have guidelines. I have that at the top. TLDR, basically,
Yeah.
like we're looking for before after result, right? And then the rest is, what does that mean? So the TLDR, that's a great place in a line or two. Sum it up, give it a hook. But then the more you provide, the more likely I might be able to find some of that gold. And then what we're doing, we're digging and we're shaping. It's almost like, to use another analogy, was it Michelangelo or something said, like, I didn't sculpt the angel in the
Yeah.
marble. I just removed the rest of the marble and let the angel come through. That's at the end of the day we're trying to do. But first we need to find that kind of pearl in there. So
Yeah. And for my own riff on this for the audience, Daniel's telling you exactly what he's looking for, but there are different marketers or journalists at each publication. And so if you keep track of your outreach over time, you can actually see what each person is looking for. And like any relationship in our life, people want different things. And you said you may be unique in that. I don't think you're totally unique, but interestingly, I do think you may be in the minority. I would say certainly the higher up you go in the publication hierarchy, the more detailed the queries are, the lengthier the replies they're looking for. So maybe that could help the listeners to kind of, okay, is this publication the type that just likes to copy paste block quotes? Let me just whip out a paragraph for them. But is this person one who actually dissects it and will even, like, I don't know how to use this in writing language, but they split the sentence apart, that kind of stuff. So I think you're more the latter, more journalistic when you approach a pitch.
Yeah, I mean, some people are writing blog posts with 80 quotes and they have to do 10 of those a day. Just give them the darn quote they
Yeah.
asked for. They're going to copy paste and it's going to be in there. But another thing is you're asking me this, right, Greg? And as we talked about, there is a human on the other side. And I get emails from PR reps, who are like, hey, I'm new to this beat. I see you're a reporter on it. I just want to introduce myself and ask, what are you looking for? Right. So if there's, again, treat them like a human being on the other side. You can ask them like, hey, what are you looking for?
Awesome.
Because it could vary for everyone.
What are you doing on your side? And by the way, for everyone listening, but also Daniel, since we are just meeting, these questions are not, all right, awesome. Now I have the answer how I can game Daniel next time or the system. These are the reverse, right? And I've certainly gone through my evolution in this, but these are so we can be a positive part of the ecosystem. Believe it or not, that's how this all works long term. So I have a question for you. Think we could all even predict what I'm about to ask about. It's AI, right? So people are tempted. From your side, how are you spotting AI spam? And a follow-up to that is, what's the difference between AI and SEO spam, or are they the same thing these days?
Yeah, so AI is a tool, right? It's a super advanced, super cool, amazing, brilliant tool. But at the end of the day, it's a tool and it's all in how you wield it. And so, again, I'm not going to come out as against AI. As I mentioned, MarketingSherpa's parent company is MeclabsAI, but it's how you wield it. And so, to kind of answer your question, how do I spot AI? I mean, sometimes it's, come on, it's super, like I'll get 50 pitches from 3:31 a.m. to 3:33 a.m., all with the same exact format from different companies, right? With the same exact format and look and feel. And so maybe I'm not so smart the first, second, or third, I don't notice, but by the fourth or 10th or 20th, I'm like, hey, there's kind of something going on here. So sometimes I do spot it because it's so obvious and bad. I try to be forgiving because we have an international audience. And something I've noticed over the years is if you are not a native English speaker, the difference between a non-native English speaker and an AI can be hard to discern. And so sometimes, they have the best motivation and they're trying, they're just not native English speakers. So I try not to be too harsh on it. The thing I do overall to make sure that we're not publishing AI drivel, and there has been, you can search on this, anyone listening, a lot of, I don't know what you call it, scandals in the journalism industry where people have been published and quoted, even in fairly reputable publications, and they are synthetic humans. They didn't actually exist. And
Yeah,
so this is something that journalists are being a little more careful about, and the journalist query services where you can get banned and blacklisted, not just by us, but even by the query services if you're using AI.
absolutely.
None of those tools work perfectly, but what I do is there is a series of follow-ups. So we are occasionally, I mean, just looking for a specific quote in a specific article, and we find the right one, it's there. But there's often a series of feedback and follow-up I have. And so at the end of the day, it's not just the initial pitch. It's, are you coming back with that real information? Does it seem like a human? Can I verify your identity? LinkedIn is a place we use. Can I verify that company? And all of these types of things are other factors. So to answer that first question, I don't really have a perfect way to fish out AI unless it's really horrible. But since, again, there's that back and forth and follow-ups, the garbage, for lack of a better word, does tend to fall out of the funnel. I mean, it's kind of a funnel. Now, when it comes to, AI spam versus SEO spam, again, it's not, if it's spam, I don't really care if it was AI or if you came up with it
Right.
in a dream. You know what I mean? It's just garbage. But now here's the kind of nice pitch for AI. AI, and this is what we do with MeclabsAI, AI, it can help you serve a customer better. And in this case, as I said, I search help reporter out once a day. You're my customer, Greg. Everyone listening is probably my customer. The people who are sourcing a customer for me. I want to understand you to serve you better. Like, for example, one thing I do, I'd heard from people like, I never even hear back from these HARO pitches. I don't want to invest my time and never even hear back. I think each and every person who sends one, so at least you know I got it and read it. Doesn't mean I'm going to pick it, but at least you know I'm respecting your time. I got it. But one thing you can do to help better serve the reporters you're pitching and stuff is use AI, right? So like one thing we do is like we build a synthetic customer, right? We build this fake customer, and then you can conversate with it, right? So build a customer of that reporter, build a fake version of that reporter, and ask it these type of questions. What do you want? How can I pitch? Show it your pitches, right? Get ideas for pitches. Get ideas of what follow-up questions the reporter might ask before they even ask them, and then use all that to craft a better pitch. Versus you've got some super great automated algorithm that's like automatically reading podcast transcripts or whatever, and it says, I like what you said in this episode, and now pick my guest or something like that, right? Again, so it's with anything, and AI is part of this. How can you better serve a potential customer? In this case, we're talking about reporters, versus how can you try to game the system or trick them because you're so clever?
Man, this was not part of the plan, but you just called out something I wanted to revisit for everyone. And I would hazard a guess that a lot of our audience actually is not a native English speaker. They are doing their best in an industry that is actually a great career path for where they're from. And it's really hard for a lot of them to deal with the stigmas that they're fighting against. So I actually got my start here in China editing stuff that had been translated. And so I'm very acutely aware, having lived in other countries and married into another culture, just how amazing it is when someone tries to speak in my language. They're doing their best. And even I last week had someone in a mastermind be like, "Did you just write this comment with AI?" And I'm like, why would I have made the vulnerable post I did and then bothered to do AI? Besides the point, but I really appreciate what you said, because this, I find right now in the time we're in, needs to be pointed out to business owners and hiring managers and also recipients of pitches that AI spam and English second language writing, they're very hard to discern right now. And there are tells for AI content, but they happen to overlap very significantly with English second language writing. And I don't have anywhere to go in the combo from there. I'm just really appreciating that you called that out and thought a couple more minutes on that one to support everyone else in the rest of the world that's not a native speaker, but they're doing their best in our language.
Well, and I want to say something to encourage everyone. And then I also kind of want to ask you, since you're in China, if there's any cultural differences you can point out between what we do in America than what they do in China. So I could also know and how I handle it. Because sometimes they'll do something, that'll just kind of stick you as wrong. And it's like, well, it's just kind of a cultural difference. But so one encouragement we used to have on the Marketing Sherpa blog, ask Marketing Sherpa, this kind of question thing. And someone had asked me, I remember, I'm a non-native English speaker, but I want to get a career as a copywriter. What advice would you give me? What I said was, we're all non-native speakers at some point in our career. So early in my career, I was more in the luxury real estate industry. And then about 5 years in, I moved to the enterprise software and technology industry, right?
Right.
And when I moved, yes, I am a native English speaker. I worked for global companies where I am fortunate that English is an international language of business, where we'd have some foreign writers in the calls and they had challenges with the length of the copy and stuff. But at the end of the day, I needed to learn a new language. I needed to speak the enterprise software language, even though I spoke English. And that is a different language. And so the encouragement I would give to any writer or anyone in marketing is immerse yourself, swim in that water as much as you can. So back then, what I did was I subscribed to as many industry publications. They don't have these kind of print publications as much anymore in industries, but they used to have it for different industries. They certainly do online. Subscribe to as many of those as you can, read them or read them for free, or listen to podcasts in them or whatever, and just start swimming in that water, and you will become more fluent in that language. So that was partly how the English language is used in business and marketing, but that is also how the language is used in a specific industry. So, but with that, Greg, I want to ask, because you've got this unique perspective being in China. I am guessing you are not native Chinese. Could be wrong about that. But so do you have any like understanding of, are there specific cultural differences maybe in that part of the world that, us in the West should be aware of when they're pitching?
Yeah, we did a great episode with JP. His English name is John, who's hosting a conference in September in Shenzhen. I want to plug the Shenzhen SEO conference. But we did a great episode diving into these differences. So definitely, if anyone wants to check that out on the channel, For me, it's been a long learning curve, and I'm not a Chinese cultural expert by any means because I find I'm wrong more often than right. But I think the biggest one for business that's applicable that was hard for me at first is in our culture, we come from I do it myself, and a favor is almost an insult at times, especially when you don't know that person. It's appreciated in other contexts, but for instance, in China, JP, I'm coming to speak at a workshop he's hosting in another city, and he's like, "I'll book your hotel and let me get your," and I'm like, "Oh, this feels weird. Like I feel like you're trying to pull a move on me here. Like what's going on?" But he was just trying to make everything easy as the organizer so that I'm there at the hotel. Like it all made perfect sense, but for whatever reason, I just threw up my guard of like, why are you doing all these things? And maybe I'm way off and that I'm wrong about our own culture, but that was it took me a while to get used to just how much they want to do for someone else once you're building that relationship. That guanxi in Chinese.
No, that is great. I mean, there's, if anyone follows, sales research and stuff, there's that principle of reciprocity. I'm sure everyone read Cialdini and they know the principle of reciprocity. So now, like you said, anytime someone's giving you something, you're like, wait a minute, what's the catch here?
That's all. That's what I was like, ah, shoot. But really, I think, like I said, I could be wrong, and better probably to ask JP or someone like that who knows better than me. But thanks for the question. Yeah. So it is called TLDR. We do try to keep it to like 20, 25 minutes. I have at least one more question for you, and then I always love to end just to preview to see what I didn't ask you that you'd love to share with the audience. But real quick, one more question for you about kind of the art of pitching here is you talked about because I'm working on a pitch towards you to you, right? To finally try to get Jolly on the Meclabs blog. And so you're the pitch receiving publisher. And one thing I see, not just you, but time and time again, is show me a specific example of something you've done. I don't want to just hear about generic, you could have Googled this a few times and told me a theoretical thing that you didn't do. Why is demonstrating past execution preferable versus an evergreen theoretical thing you could have done?
I mean, because why do I need you? Why do I need it? So I get pitches about a topic that, for lack of a better word, it's a book report on it, right? That is some generic commodity information that, like you said, I could find by quickly Googling or asking AI now, right? So, I mean, that is all of our challenges in this AI era. How do we have value above AI? If I could just quickly, again, ask AI or Google, why do I need you? But to get a little deeper that, so, again, as I mentioned, Meclabs has all these methodologies. So I like to kind of teach and think about those methodologies. And one of them is value proposition. And I won't get into the whole thing, but two key elements that make an effective value proposition. One is exclusivity and the other is credibility. And I won't get into everything, but this is where that unique story helps. So it's one is that unique story. Again, there's a customer, you pitching me, I'm your customer. My customer at the end of the day is the audience. And what the audience wants, I think, is not more generic information. They are hardworking marketers and entrepreneurs that are in the salt mines, whatever you want to call it, every day. They read general information, they're trying to get results, and they are stuck in some way or form, as we all are. And when they are, all we're trying to do at Marketing Sherpa is help them get unstuck. Give them this great inspiration so they get their next best idea. We don't have the idea. We've got the inspiration. You're going to get the idea. So to do that, when we talk about exclusivity and credibility, one, what is the credibility that your idea works, right? So I'm sure, Greg, when you started at some point in SEO, you read this general information about SEO. You're like, great, I'm going to be an SEO. You went out there and did it. And it didn't all work as they said it would, right? Because that is just the reality of the situation. We do get pitched fantastic new ideas, and that's great. A lot of the things we get pitched are, we all kind of know the same basic information, and it comes down to the execution, right? So that credibility comes in, doesn't just say, hey, this is a good idea, right? Whereas here, be authentic. When it comes to SEO, everyone did the same tactic, right? But it's, hey, here's how we actually did it. And when it comes to that credibility, a few things that really help. One is we always, the format we use is before after results, right? Because we're trying to show the audience a comparative. That's what really being a marketer and entrepreneur is. It comes down to, I've got a specific budget, I've got a specific amount of time, resources. Do I do this thing or that, right? So we always want to show that comparative. Hey, this is what worked, this is what didn't. And it also helps when it's kind of the struggles within to show how that worked. That's what's going to be the most helpful. So when you're pitching that, it's not just we had this client, they were horrible. I got them 1,000% more impressions, right? No, it's, hey, we had this client, we did this analysis, this stuff worked. They were doing this well. This is good stuff. This we weren't sure about. We tried these things. This worked. This didn't. And then we got, better, maybe a result in impressions like traffic or even better revenue, right? So that's that one piece. It's that credibility. It's not just, oh, I have this idea. I think it would work, right? We all think it'll work. How did you do it? Because when you actually have to roll up your sleeves and do it, you probably learn a lot along the way. Those subtle tweaks are what make a big difference. So that's credibility is a key part. That other key part is exclusivity. Again, I get a lot of pitches about everything. And if it's about a general topic, I've got, 100 people saying the same thing of like, I don't do this for link building or whatever. Like, everyone's saying that. Why should I listen to your thing? The exclusivity comes in, and this is, again, a great differentiator from AI or anything else or anyone else out there. Only you have your specific story. That is where you are, that special snowflake in the world that your mom always told you were. Only you have that story and those specific nuances of that story. So tell your story. Tell the thing you did, right? Everyone kind of feels like they're an expert in a topic. And when I get a lot of pitches, it's, oh, I've done this for this many years. I'm this expert and blah, blah, blah. But again, they're all saying the same thing. But nobody else can say your specific story. That is your exclusivity. And that is what, frankly, makes it interesting to read and incredible.
Yeah, I think for everyone listening, the imposter syndrome can kick in right there. And if it helps to get a little more encouragement, just rewatch what Daniel just said, because that is what people want to hear. It's the same thing when you talk to people in person, right? No, it's not that exciting if you're talking to someone and you're just regurgitating something they've already read elsewhere. But they are genuinely interested when you share what really did happen to you last week when you tried something. So it just is how we have another episode with a small business owner who taught herself to be a publicist. She got great advice from a mentor too, but using HARO, got herself in Netflix, got herself on Dr. Oz, and we talked a lot about imposter syndrome. It's breaking through that barrier and realizing the person on the other end really does want to hear from you, not a generated piece of content or a regurgitated Google that you just did. This has been so awesome. I always like to end these episodes, Daniel, with what did I not ask that coming into this you thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to finally have the chance to talk about this. And I just haven't gotten there.
I think it's just, I mean, I mentioned this briefly, but it's just the human side of this. And I think it's worth mentioning since, we are two humans talking on a podcast. You could get Notebook LM and Google to take some article on HARO, and you could listen to synthetic versions of that if you wanted, and you could probably get generic information. But the biggest thing I would encourage everyone is like, you are a human being, and you are a human being when you're playing volleyball or golf or reading or walking on the beach or eating spaghetti with your kids, right? And whatever you do in your downtime. But in this 9 to 5 or whatever it is, you're also a human being at work. And it's not only how will I get this result for myself or my client? I mean, that's not how I live. Everyone has their own choice. It's what do I want my life to be? At what human being do I want to be? And there are some fields where it seems like that's talked about more than others, right? So if it's the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Oscars, or we're talking about an artist or a painter, musician, then these things are so important. But when we're talking about a marketer, an SEO, or a PR person, or any of this stuff, it just becomes results, right? And we talk about performance marketing has made this worse, I think, in some ways than better. So yes, there are certain ways to achieve success with the metrics, and I hope you do those. But the biggest thing I would ask you as you're kind of hanging up on this podcast is what do you want your life to be? What human being do you want to be? And how does that affect this specific topic, how you pitch, but how you approach your entire job? For me personally, without sounding pretentious, the word creator has been used way too much. I can't use the word creator. I want to use creator, but it's thought of in a different way. So I like the word artist. I find inspiration personally from stand-up comedians. I love stand-up comedy. And I listen to also a lot of podcasts about their craft and how they do it. And the one thing I love about that is there is such a craft to how they go about it. It's not just getting their conversion, which is the joke. It's the craft to how they shape everything from an individual joke to a career. And so I would encourage everyone listening, whatever you do, whatever you're an SEO, whatever it is, do it like an artist or whatever word you choose to use or whoever inspires you, and consider not just those financial metrics and whatever they are, but consider how you live your life every day and how you want to live it, right? And that's one reason I do two things. One, I push so hard to get actual value for our audience. Like I said, my name's on it too, but I want to create art, even if it's just art in the form of a marketing article. And the other thing is, and that's why, I'm glad Greg invited me on this podcast. And I do this back and forth with people who are pitching. Like, if I see that the motivation is right on the other side, I do try to offer tips and help them. Like, I am trying to get them across the finish line to publish an article, right?
You give the coveted do follow backlink too.
Yeah, and there's a reason. I don't want to get too deep because I know it's TLDR, but Marketing Sherpa did not used to do that. Go back and look at our older articles. We actually printed the URL. We would print the URL. And there was a change over time because there is a value exchange. Our sources are also our customers. And we know we're going to ask you to do a lot of work. It's not just a quick quote to get this story. So I also want to give you something of value.
This has been very valuable, cheesy segue as it may be. This has been very valuable for me. I hope for everyone, Daniel. Where can people find you if they want to reach out, ask more questions? Obviously, they need to check out MeclabsAI, right? Marketing Sherpa. Anywhere else they could look for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, Marketing Sherpa, we got a lot of free content there. It helps marketers. MeclabsAI, as an AI with our patent methodology that helps you there. And my name's Daniel Burstein. Look at how Greg has it spelled. Everyone spells it wrong. If you search it, there's not a lot of Daniel Bursteins out there. So I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I'm, again, with Marketing Sherpa, our goal is to teach you how to do marketing. So I'm always trying to be helpful. So feel free to reach out. Don't be scared. I don't know how I scared you, Greg, but I hope everyone listening isn't scared. Apparently I scared Greg years ago, but my apologies for that.
I overcame it. I'm really grateful to meet you here. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thanks. This was fun, Greg.